Thank you, Lyda. Amazing how songwriters come up with words. Just fabulous. And so we talk about children, and we all want to think of all the wonderful things. I mean, the sound of that child speaking while we were listening to the song. If it was, you couldn't have planned it better. And if it was recorded that way, I hope it picked it up because, my gosh. And I do want to just say, for me, and if you could tell anyone who has a young child in the room making noise, that doesn't bother me at all. I hope it doesn't bother you. Unless they're screaming and just total distraction, but a few voices like that, it's just very endearing. So please tell your friends if they have a child near you that that's fine. It's okay that they're talking in this church. So many of you know that I was a school teacher for many years, so children are very dear to me. I love children. Well, who doesn't? We love to see their glowing smiles and their radiant energy, and they're just like gifts of God, reminding us of the purity and innocence that a child of God really is. And we love to see them playing happily and growing and exploring their potential. Many of us have grandchildren or wish to have grandchildren soon. And we know that as we raised our own children, we felt that privilege of having them in our lives. But any one of us who has raised a child remembers those nights when there's incessant crying, and no matter what you do, it doesn't stop. Changing the diaper, feeding, burping, changing the diaper again, until you're so worn out you have no idea what to do next. Come on. It's true. And for a moment there, you can get an idea of what a person who isn't as well put together as you might want to do. A millimeter away from feeling some violence toward the child. Totally not the child's fault. And you know it's time to put that child down whether he's crying or not. And yet some parents don't quite have that all together to be able to handle it. And so, and maybe, who knows why, right? But those are the children that we really want to help somehow. A child that seems to be, and then, older children especially, who start to become aware of who they are and are developing, who am I? And when they have a parent who isn't able to give them that message of they are precious, they are divine. A parent who isn't able to give that message but gives another message of you're in the way. The child hears you're not wanted. We all know that happens in our own neighborhoods, in our own families, and perhaps in our past. Life isn't a bowl of cherries all the time. And so children walk into a family that is just not able to give them what they deserve. I think what we know in this circle is that we are divine. And our work is to come back to that awareness, the awareness that Jesus had. He woke up to an awareness that he is one with God. And we're all doing the work to come back to that. we're coming back to that by letting go of old messages that we were taught by someone or some institution. Our parents may have done absolutely their very best, but maybe their very best gave us an impression that we're holding on to, that we are now working to let go of. And so that is our work. What I think about when I think about those children that are just not aware of how wonderful they are, especially as having been a teacher and watching children day after day after day, and it seems like there was always one every year that I wanted to take home with me and take them out of that space that they were living in. Just, tugged in my heart, boy, that kid is great if he could just stop hearing what he's hearing every day at home. And so we want to teach the children how fabulous they are. In fact, we want us to know how fabulous we are. So when we see a child who is not taken care of as much as they deserve, a lot comes up. Things come up that we may have really been holding on to for all of our life since our childhood. So what came to me as I pulled pieces together about this talk and said, what is mine to say? What came to me surprised me. I thought, oh no, I can't do that. But I will, I must. I want to talk about that shadow work that we often don't want to deal with. We always want to say, think positive, everything's going to be all right. But sometimes we have to dig out and deal with the crap that we've been hanging on to. The shadow work is just that, looking at that stuff that we want to put in the shadows. And in some way, I think, so what comes up to me when I remember seeing those children that I loved in my classroom that I wanted to rescue, I think now, what was behind that? I think some of it was anger at the parents for failing. And that's really something that I need to work on, because that really calls for forgiveness. So here's where I'm thinking. Every parent, most parents, expect to be a great parent. And some parents are parents of unwanted pregnancy, but most of them even reconcile with that by the time the baby comes. And then stuff happens in their lives. A mental health, a depression, a drug problem, a marriage problem, poverty, or little education to begin with, so there's very few resources. And something happens where they just fail themselves as parents. They don't get to be that wonderful parent that they dreamed of being. So the work for me to do, and I invite some of you to do this too, is to forgive that parent for giving less to that beautiful child than they deserved. And that could be someone in your past. It could be a sibling. It could be a cousin. It could be an unknown. The work of forgiveness is huge. It's huge. And it's important because without it, we really can't move on. It's like going through a spiritual journey, going through the gates of awareness, awakening, starting to realize that we are one with God, and we're moving on, and then we get to that gate that the only way to get through the gate is to go through it. You can't deny it. And that's the gate of forgiveness.
Amen.
The gate of forgiveness is yours to walk through, or not. If you choose not to walk through that gate of forgiveness, you can be okay to some extent. But to really step into complete freedom, emotional freedom, and spiritual awareness and expansion, to really step into the full freedom that you deserve, it's important to walk through the gate of freedom, of forgiveness. Forgiving the people who messed with you. Forgiving. Letting it go. You don't have to forget it because it has made you the wise person that you are. But forgiving, not holding it against them in any way. They did what they could do. Forgiving yourself, perhaps, for not being the parent that you wanted to be for your child. Forgiving in any way that is needed. So at your times of being quiet and silent, do a spiritual inventory. What is mine to forgive? What is mine to forgive? Am I willing to look at it and let it go? Am I willing so that I can have the wholeness and freedom that I so much want and deserve? Marianne Williamson shares something of her insights from the Course in Miracles. She's talking about her child, raising her child, and she says, working on ourselves. I watch my baby as she extends her love to everyone she meets. She hasn't learned yet that anyone is unsafe. Nothing stands between her natural impulse to love and her expression of that love. She smiles with the tenderness of her true feelings. One day I will have to teach her that not every expression of love is appropriate. But locking your door is vastly different from locking your heart. The greatest challenge of parenthood will be to support her in keeping an open heart while living in a fearful world. We can't really give to our children what we don't have ourselves. We can't really give to our children what we don't have ourselves. In that sense, my greatest gift to my daughter is that I continue to work on myself. Children learn more through imitation than through any form of instruction. Our greatest opportunity is to positively affect another person's life, to accept God's love into our own. If we do our work to be spiritually whole, then we can give that awareness to someone else. That is one of the primary principles of miracles in relationships, Marianne writes. We are to look to ourselves, our own lessons, and our thoughts and behavior in order to find peace with another person. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker, says the Course in Miracles, is to accept the atonement for himself. End quote. The ego will always tempt us to think that the breakdown of a relationship has to do with what they did wrong, or what they're not seeing, or what they need to reform. The focus must remain on ourselves. We're affected by other people's lovelessness only to the extent to which we judge them for it. Otherwise, we are invulnerable to the ego as the Son of God is meant to be. We are only vulnerable to other people's behaviors as we open ourselves to them. So what does this have to do with the focus of foster parenting? I would think that anyone who is willing to open the door to a child would be willing to live that divine love for that child. And the work to do is to let go of judgment against the biological parents. Let go of judgment. It's now my job to love, to give that child the love that they're so longing for. And that's really one of the things, the only thing that they're really looking for is a mother's love or a father's love or father's pride and acceptance. I skimmed through this incredible book by Dave Peltzer. This is his second. The first one talks about his early childhood. The second one this is his teenage years and final. He was a child in a foster home for most of his life after, the first 9 years with his family that was just unspeakable experiences that he had. And so from age 9 on, he had to deal with 5 different foster homes. What he says that he wanted, that he finally got, he didn't get from the person he expected to get it from. The desire for this foster child was to get his mother to really love him. That's what he wanted all his life. And he just couldn't get it. Way past into his early adulthood, he finished his GED, he went into the Air Force and became a successful man. But he had an opportunity. Soon after he enlisted in the Air Force, his mother got word that this had happened, his original mother. And she called. Her voice wasn't that of the evil mother, but my mommy from years ago. I could almost see Mommy's face on the other end of the phone as she cried. She claimed that she thought of me all the time, and she always wanted nothing but the best for me. We talked for over an hour, and I strained my ear in hopes of hearing the 3 most important words I had wanted Mom to say all my life. Alice, my foster parent. This Alice is just this wonderful woman who took him in and raised him into adulthood. Alice stood beside me as I cried into the telephone. I wanted to be with my mom. I wanted to see her face in hopes of hearing those 3 words. I realized I was being foolish, but I felt I should at least try. It took all of Alice's persuasive powers to keep me from going to visit Mom. But in my heart, I knew that Mother was just toying with my emotions. For over 18 years, I had wanted something I knew I could never receive, Mom's love. Without a word, Alice opened her arms. And as she held me, I suddenly realized that my lifelong search for love and acceptance had finally ended in the arms of a foster parent. The children want a mother's love, a father's love. Whether that comes from a biological mother or father is something that they can adjust to, but that's what they want. And that's what a healthy adult can give them. So we put out a call for healthy adults, single, couples, gay, lesbian, whatever. We put that call out to Western North Carolina, starting right here in this community. Maybe it's someone in this community, maybe not. It takes a village to raise a child. So if any one of you feels called to do that, know that you won't do that alone. You'll do that with every one of us right here. So we open that vision for Western North Carolina to have quality folks who will be able to give someone a mother's, a father's love, the unconditional love that they can give themselves, that safe home. Hold that vision with me. And we'll watch it unfold. It will, as we hold it. The work that we do to forgive is a personal work. Forgiving others who abuse a child or neglect a child. Forgiving, even if there was not even called neglect or abuse, but just bad feelings from the past. Forgiving, letting it be, knowing they did the best they could, even if it isn't up to what you thought the best could be. And letting yourself be free of that baggage. You'll feel 20, 30, 60, 100 pounds lighter. And walk through that door of forgiveness and allow yourself to be the radiant one that you are. That's the spiritual challenge for us at all times and in all places. And as the song that Light wrote is, if we can help one child feel peace, if you can help your child, inner child, feel peace, we will, one by one, create a better world for all of us. So just meditate on that and let it sink into your awareness. Thank you. Namaste.